It's Tuesday, and you're listening to Backstage with hashtag RDM right here on the Radio Random Network. My guest today is the star of the brand new featured film, Bread and Butter. She's going to be talking about her career, the brand new featured film, and so much more. It's a great conversation. Let's pay a bill. And when we come back, I'll be talking to none other than Miss Christine Weatherup. We'll be right back.
You're Backstage with hashtag RDM on Radio Random Network. Now, here's the host, hashtag RDM, Russell Devin McLean.
All right, my guest today on Backstage with hashtag RDM on the Radio Random Network. She is the star of a brand new film called Bread and Butter, and she's got a lot of very interesting things going on. We're going to sit here and talk about all of that and a little bit more. I'm talking none other than Miss Christine Weatherup. Christine, how you doing today, sweetie?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here talking to you.
Yes, indeed. So, Christine, right off the bat, let's talk a little bit about that moment in your life when you decided to pursue acting as a profession.
Sure, that's a great question. You know, it's funny. I grew up in the LA area, and I can't remember a time where I didn't want to act. It was something that just from day one, I remember watching television and watching movies and telling my parents, like, I want to do that. I want to be in those. And I didn't know how to do that or how to get, you know, auditions or agents or anything like that. And it wasn't until my elementary school or middle school had an open casting call. And then I went to an audition, and from there I got a call back. I didn't end up getting that role. But then after that, it was like, okay, maybe now I'll start taking classes and see what happens next. And I've been acting ever since I was a teenager.
That's awesome. Now, at that time, Christine, who are some of your influences in the entertainment world?
Oh, sure. Well, from a young age, I loved Jodie Foster. She was always just the person that I wanted to emulate. I think the first movie I saw her in was Freaky Friday.
Right.
But yeah, so like her stuff when she was a kid, I loved, like Bugsy Malone and some of the more silly stuff that I don't think people think of her for, and Maverick and movies like that. And then as I got older, and then I saw, you know, Taxi Driver or Silence of the Lambs, those performances are just so incredible. I just have always admired her. And Kate Winslet. I mean, there's so many incredible actresses, especially right now. I feel like, you know, Jessica Chastain and, you know, just incredible actresses all over the place. But like as a kid, it was Jodie Foster.
Yes, indeed. So with all of that said, I mean, tell us a little bit about how you got involved with this new movie, Bread and Butter.
Sure. So it's a funny story, actually. I read an article online on the website IndieWire, which, you know, is a hub of independent filmmaking articles. And actually the writer-director of Bread and Butter had written this article on IndieWire talking about how she was having trouble casting her film, that she was very frustrated by the women that were being pitched to her, because she wrote this film about, you know, sort of a woman who's not always seen on screen, a more average, relatable, grounded woman, not some, you know, supermodel who like is having trouble finding the one. But it was supposed to be more about a real person, and that she felt like everyone in Hollywood that she was being pitched were sort of cookie cutter stereotypes, and she wanted somebody who was different than that. And it was such a refreshing article and so great to read that a filmmaker was looking for someone more like that, that I reached out to the director directly. And from there, she let me come in and audition, and then I booked the role.
That's pretty awesome. So let me ask you a question about your character, who is and with my southern drawl and lack of reading skills, I may screw up the character name, but your character Amelia in the movie, correct?
That's correct. That's Amelia Kerensky. Yeah.
Awesome. So how did you prepare for such a character?
Yeah, she's a super fun character. So she's a bit of a late bloomer. She's almost 30, and she has never really had a boyfriend or any real relationship. And so she's not, you know, not your typical 30-year-old. And I think in approaching that role, well, you know, I'm actually married, but I remember that time, particularly when I went off to college and I had never had, you know, a real relationship. I'd gone to an all-girls school, and so dating wasn't much of a thing in high school, and I felt so behind and so just late on, like everybody was 10 steps ahead, and that sort of fear and that feeling I definitely remembered. And so in approaching Amelia, I definitely drew upon my own experience, feeling like a late bloomer, as I think we all have felt at some point about some facet of our life.
Yes, indeed. Well, let's talk a little bit about your supporting characters there, the people that you worked with in the film.
Yeah.
What was it like working with the likes of, someone like the director, Miss Liz?
Sure.
Tell us a little
Well, I
bit
was
about
thinking,
that experience.
well, working with Liz was wonderful. This was her first film, her first feature film. And so I think there was that excitement and energy, from everybody. Everybody was super excited and passionate about the project. And I think with independent films, you don't make them for the money, I suppose.
Right.
You're making them because you're so passionate about the material and the story. And so that energy was really infectious. And it was really unique to have a female director. Oftentimes I've been working, like I said, professionally since I was a teenager, and I can count on one hand how many female directors I've worked with, especially on a larger project. And so that was very exciting to me to just have that fresh perspective and energy. But in terms of other supporting players, I'm assuming you might be thinking of Bobby Moynihan from Saturday Night Live. He's my co-star in the film, one of my co-stars.
Yes, indeed.
And he was such a treat to work with. He's so funny and naturally funny and down to earth and kind and just a wonderful human being and a wonderful actor. And it was really exciting to get to work with him on something that was different than what he usually does. So instead of being sort of broad sketch comedy like Saturday Night Live, there's comedy in our film, but it's much more grounded, authentic, sort of naturalistic feeling. And so to get to see him do that kind of work was really interesting and wonderful. And then, of course, we also had Micah Houtman, who recently appeared in Everest, and I think it's already started now. He has an arc on Homeland, and he was an incredible actor and incredibly kind and smart and talented, and the cast was lovely. And it's funny, Liz, the director, jokes that she has like a no jerks policy, where she didn't want to cast anybody who might be difficult in any way. She really wanted people who wanted to be there and were excited about the project. And that goes for crew as well. And I think everybody was so lovely because of that,
With all of that said, you've worked with you worked on a lot of things. You've worked with from sitcoms to TV series to now feature films. But have you ever had to deal with anybody that was difficult?
This could be a dangerous question.
Oh, okay.
I would say, not directly, although I have been on some larger sets where, either tensions are high or maybe some of the personalities are larger. Right. And they have, and it creates a certain energy on set. And so, somebody, for instance, I'm not going to name any names, but there was one nice try. One project that I had worked on where, the lead, who carried the project, he, had a flight to catch the next day. And so he was very antsy on set and really, felt like everything should be moving much quicker. And I think that energy could be felt by everybody on set. And of course, everybody wants to do a great job and get the shot off and get the project, rolling. But I think his energy definitely created some challenges.
Yes, indeed. So when something like that happens and you have somebody there that actually, like you said, he's in a hurry or they're being a prima donna.
Sure.
Just like in life or in everything else, I guess it changes the method of acting. Completely.
Well, and if you're feeling pressured on set to, you got to get it in this one take, we don't have time for the rest, that can really affect your performance, And of course, there are always deadlines, and you don't have all the time in the world, no matter what project. And actually, on independent film, I think the deadline's the tightest because money is stretched very thin. And, our film, for instance, it's a full-length feature film, 90 minutes, and we only had 16 days to shoot it. Whereas, a big Hollywood studio film might have 3 months, And so even though we were at a quick pace, I think we still managed to have such a positive environment that I don't think there was that, or at least I didn't feel as an actor,
Right.
pressure to get it right, that I had one take and we had to move on, whereas sometimes you can have that. So sometimes it's nice to have the actor sort of shielded, or everybody's shielded from that feeling of pressure, even though we all know you gotta do it and gotta make it work.
Right. I mean, well, let me ask you this question here, and it's kind of off the cuff a little bit, but, in the entertainment industry and the, especially the movie world, there's a lot of critics, okay? But how do you personally, have you had to deal with any negative fallout or feedback from critics? And if so, how did you deal with it?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think, we've been fortunate. The feedback from Bread and Butter has been really positive. And, I have read reviews of it and stuff, and I think that can sometimes be a dangerous thing because, there's a saying in the new media world, because they do a lot of stuff in new media and internet content, that you shouldn't read the comments because, notoriously on YouTube, because it's so anonymous, people will write very nasty things they wouldn't say to somebody's face, right?
Right, definitely.
And it's tempting to want to read those comments. And, from some of the projects I've done, other projects, I have gone down that hole of, well, let's see what people are thinking and responding. And very rarely are those critical comments helpful. And so, I mean, I think more and more about, by the time the project is done, my work is complete. And, usually there's not too much that I can get good or bad from reading a comment. So I've been trying to employ that, that I won't really check comments or read reviews unless, maybe a friend will tell me, hey, I saw this great review, you should check it out. And then I'll look at it. But, I think it can be dangerous to kind of go into that hole and try to read every comment written about you or your work or your project, because it can be dangerous. And, it's funny you mentioned that because there's the writer Elizabeth Gilbert, who just wrote Big Magic, which is a book on creativity. And she talks about the danger of reading reviews and negative feedback and how that can really damage an artist and make it hard to do the work. And so I think finding that balance for you, whether that means just not opening up yourself to that or sort of knowing the sources to look at. YouTube comments, maybe not, but, a great article, from a publication you admire, sure, maybe that's good.
Yes, indeed. Well, I mean, with the film, it you have a lot of positive responses from festivals.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a. Did you think whenever you were filming this thing, did you think that it would have such a warm embrace from the festival world?
Well, you always hope it will, and I definitely, when I read the film before I even auditioned, I was struck by the work itself and excited about what it had to say and its approach. And so you definitely hope, if you are feeling that excitement, that others down the line, if you do everything right and if, all goes well on set, that you have a product that excites other people and they elicits that same response. But at the same time, while you're shooting it, I think it's hard to think that far in advance or think of how other people will receive it. But, it's definitely a joy after the fact to have such a warm reception for the film.
Yes, indeed. And real quick, before I know you probably got a busy day and you're doing a lot of things, but is there anything that you, after seeing the final product of Bread and Butter and your character, and is there anything that you would go back and maybe change?
I don't think specifically. Our film actually, so we shot in 16 days, and the final film was 90 minutes. When they did the very first edit of the film, it was actually 2.5 hours instead of an hour and a half. And so they got rid of basically an hour worth of material. And so I suppose, I'd be curious to know I'm sure Liz's response would be that she wouldn't have, shot some of those scenes that we ended up getting rid of, because then we could have spent more time on the other stuff. Although you never know what scenes you'll end up cutting. So I guess in retrospect, I wonder, if we had gotten rid of some of the scenes earlier, on the page, and then expanded some of the scenes we ended up shooting, maybe. But, hindsight's always 20/20. So yes, I don't know if I would have had that, if I could have predicted what scenes would make it or wouldn't make it.
Yes, indeed. All right. Well, for more information about Christine and all her upcoming projects, you can visit her at www.christineweatherup.com. You can also visit her on Twitter there at Weatherup. Is there anything you would like to say to your fans or anybody out there that would maybe want to follow in your footsteps?
Oh, well, I would say, just go for it. I think that's the best. You just, and in a business like this, and I think probably every business, there's tons of rejection. I think it seems especially, for every audition you go on, you have to go on so many to then get the role. And so it can be tough, but I think it's that act of, failing and then getting back up that makes you an artist. And so to keep inviting those failures, because you learn from each one of them and then get closer to that success. So I would say to just keep at it and keep working hard. And, and I'd say also feel free to reach out to me, whether on Twitter or through my website. I love hearing from people. So always feel free.
Christine, it was an honor and a pleasure to talk to you today. The name of the film is Bread and Butter. And
and you can check it out at breadandbuttermovie.com
sure
if you'd like
enough.
to see our trailer. Yeah.
And I'm sure it's streaming. It's streaming on Amazon and all that good stuff already, or?
Yes, you can see it on iTunes, Amazon Instant Video, Google Play, all sorts of places. DirecTV, Dish, Cox. It's all over.
Awesome. Christine, thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope to talk to you again in a couple months, see what you're up to.
I hope so too, Russell. Thanks so much.
Thank you. We'll talk to you soon, sweetheart.
Cool. Take care. Bye.
This is Radio Random Network. Find us on the web at www.radiorandomnetwork.com.